Whenever we're ready, I'll work with our production team to go live.
Thank you very much. Welcome to our Municipal Council for Tuesday, February the 7th, 2023. I'd like to call this meeting to order at this time and ask if there's any declarations of interest. Seeing none, I will move to the land acknowledgement statement. The town of East Gwillimbury recognizes and acknowledges the lands originally used and occupied by the First Peoples of the Williams Treaty First Nations and other Indigenous peoples. And on behalf of Council, I thank them for sharing this land. We also acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation as East Gwillimbury's closest First Nation community and recognize the unique relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and the waters of these territories. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and we join them in these responsibilities. On behalf of Council, I extend our thoughts, prayers, and condolences to those in Turkey and Syria who are suffering a devastating loss as a result of a recent earthquake. They face a long, difficult, and painful time ahead as they begin their recovery efforts. Our thoughts are with them and also with our Turkish and Syrian communities here. I have a couple of announcements. I wanted to remind everyone to join or support Team EG for the Coldest Night of the Year event taking place on February 25th. This will support East Gwillimbury's Blue Door Shelter, and details can be found online or through our team captain, Councillor Foster. How are we doing for people out there signing up?
I haven't looked in a couple of days, Madam Mayor, but I think there were 2 or 3 there, and we could certainly use more support going forward.
Both financially and people to walk with us? Terrific. Thank you very much. I have in front of me a little guy here that Councillor LaHaye gave me this morning, and it's to celebrate the Chinese New Year. Councillor LaHaye explained to me a little bit more, and I wondered, I couldn't do it justice, so I wondered if you would talk a little bit about this little guy that you received, I guess, yesterday for the New Year. Could you go ahead, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I was a guest at a celebration, celebrating the Chinese New Year and the Lantern Festival, which was Sunday evening, marking the end of the Chinese New Year. And so it is the Year of the Rabbit. And so I wanted to wish everybody a Happy New Year of the Rabbit. And in Chinese, it's said as 新年快乐，恭喜发财.
Thank you very much. With that, are there any announcements from members of Council? And I'll remember I have people remote today as well, so those that are remote, Councillor Roy DiClemente, don't let me forget you. At this time...
I'll be sure to speak up, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we are at deputations, and Mr. Bhoola is making a deputation to Council regarding a property municipally known as 18474 Bathurst Street and its inclusion in the Greenbelt lands. Welcome, Bobby. Good to have you with us. We haven't seen you for a long time.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and members of council. And seeing that it's beginning of the new year, wish everybody a healthy and a prosperous new year. The reason that I've requested a deputation is I felt there was an error made when they drew the line for the Greenbelt. And I will explain the process that I've been through in the meantime. I've dealt with Jay Truesdell, who is the policy advisor to the Premier, and he asked me to send an email showing what the issue is on this particular piece, which I did. He further asked me to get in contact with Sean Fraser, who is assistant to the Deputy Minister of Municipal Housing. So he asked me for the same. I sent him the plan. Just to clarify, it was for two different sites. One is here and one is in King Township. So he asked me to send it separately, which I did. And then he got back to me and he said, Bobby, I want you to please meet with the local town staff and make sure that you get council on board and they have to make the request. So the map is up there. The land we're talking about starts on Young Street, which is the right, all the way to Bathurst. And there is another map that would show that on Bathurst Street there is woodlot. And then after the woodlot, there you go. So what you see, sort of a dark gray, that's the woodlot. The yellow area is the one that is right now in the Greenbelt. But if you really look at history, from Young Street all the way to the edge of the woodlot, the farmer's been farming for years. And there is no shrubs, no trees, nothing in that yellow shaded area. So it was an error made. So basically, I'm not asking for anything other than for them to basically move the green line, the green belt line to where the red line is, where the woodlot starts. And because the land is going to be with the servicing when it'll happen for all this area, and that actually fronts up on the new east-west road that the town is insisting that they need to connect because Green Lane has become a highway, and that is on our land. However, when we all hear in a paper about people not being able to afford housing, when we have a piece of property like this with the services right at the door and it has nothing that would basically qualify it as a green belt, I think that we should have more houses put in there. That is all I have to say. If there's any questions, please ask.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bhoola. Are there questions from members of council? I'm not seeing any at this time. I have a motion here. And I'll have Councillor Johns and Councillor Foster. Be it resolved that the deputation made by B. Bhoola regarding a property municipally known as 18474 Bathurst Street and its inclusion in the Greenbelt lands be received. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much for joining us today.
And thank everybody, and hope we can get more housing going when we got the land there. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Our second item is a deputation made by Jay Schofield regarding item H1. Welcome, good to have you with us this morning.
I can't get it to come on. There we go. Good morning, Madam Mayor and members of council. Thank you for having me today and giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm Jocelyn Schofield, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my father, David Pegg, in regards to his property 3550 Bogue Road in Queensville. His property is currently listed as non-designated on the Town of East Gwillimbury's Register of Cultural Heritage Properties, and we are requesting it be removed from the register. I won't take up too much of your time. We submitted a letter in December that detailed all of the research and efforts we've gone into to come to the conclusion that we have and the request to remove it from the register. From our research in comparison to similar properties on the register, whether they're designated or non-designated, my father's property, in comparison to those, is not a very intact example of a heritage property. The few features pointed out by the Heritage Advisory Committee do not warrant a designation on the heritage list. As noted in the development service report prepared by the town, the Heritage Committee and the third-party firm hired to prepare the town register review in 2021 have also not recommended this property for Part 4 designation. Based on our research, the removal of my father's property from the heritage register would not have a significant impact on the character in the area. He will continue to maintain the landscape of the property and agricultural theme by keeping the land workable. He has about 20 acres and 15 of them are fields that he still has farmed. We have taken the advice from Heritage Advisory Committee to consider an alternative option to full demolition of the dwelling on his property that would keep features intact such as windows, doors, and trim. However, based on our research and advice from professional contractor, this is not a viable option. Many of the features that have been requested to be maintained are interior features and have no benefit to the public. In addition, it would be difficult to maintain these features with the extensive renovations required to make the house energy efficient and just make it a livable, comfortable, and healthy home. There's a lot of mold in the house at this point, which I noted in our letter. It's a huge monetary ask to repair the current dwelling when it is in such disrepair to maintain a few features. The majority of the doors and windows in the house need to be replaced. My father will do his best to salvage what he can from the current dwelling and try to incorporate it into a new dwelling. That's all I have to say on that. Like I said, most of the details are in the letter, so I hope everyone's had a chance to read it. Thanks again for having me and considering our request.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Jocelyn, for your presentation. We've chatted before about this property, and one of the things you talked about the cost of repairs, and you provided me with a letter from a contractor in Mount Albert that looked at it, Sweezy Contracting.
Yes.
In the letter, he effectively states that to bring it up to code and the repairs would be astronomical, and quite frankly, it would make building a new structure be more financially make more financial sense than trying to salvage what you have. Have I got the gist of that?
Yes, through Madam Mayor, that's correct. And the house isn't insulated, so it would really involve interior, exterior walls, redo the whole foundation because of all of the cracks and leaking in the basement, which are causing the mold. So it'd be really difficult to maintain the interior features. Even the windows and doors, all of them need to be replaced. I just spent the night at my father's and was wearing a toque to bed. It is quite cold in the house, so it would be a lot of repair to bring it one to code and two to just be a comfortable living space.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Other questions, comments? I'm not seeing any at this time. I have a mover, Councillor Foster and Councillor LaHaye. Be it resolved that the deputation made by J. Schofield regarding item H1, Development Services Planning Branch Report request to remove property from Town's Registry of Cultural Heritage Properties 3550 Bogue Road be received. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. I will move along to presentations. And Chief, you're number one on the list.
Number one on the list is number one in my mom's Don't tell my older brother that. So thank you, Your Honor, and members of council for allowing ECSS to occupy this part of the agenda. Today, we're here to talk about partnerships, two specifically, fantastic partnerships that have been initiated and fostered and developed by our prevention staff, Captain Davidson and Nicole Sprague, our public educator, reaching out to the community and developing these partnerships. So today we're going to talk about Project Zero with the folks from Enbridge Gas, as well as we're going to talk with some people from York Region's Children's Aid. At the end of the day, this is all about getting working smoke CO alarms out to the community, because we know that your best chance of surviving a fire in the event of a fire in your house is a working smoke alarm and a well thought out home escape plan. So I'd like to ask to join me at the podium here, Mike Avzonka from Enbridge Gas and Janelle Scarrett from York Region Children's Aid. Don't fight over who goes first. Go ahead, Mike.
Welcome. Good to have you both with us today.
Morning, Madam Mayor, members of council. Chief has asked me to kind of go off script here at the last minute, but I do have a couple of key points. But before I do that, my name is Mike Avzonka. I'm the station operations manager for this region on behalf of Enbridge, and I'm here with Caitlin Oakley, who is an operations supervisor, primarily looking after emergency response, working with the fire department, and that's not a slight on the police officers if you are here today. They do a great job on emergency response as well. But I do have a couple of key points. This year, Enbridge Gas is donating $250,000 across Ontario to various municipalities, and East Gwillimbury is one of 50 municipalities today receiving the combination smoke and CO detectors that are outside being ready to be given out to local recipients. And as the chief mentioned, it's huge for prevention. CO is a silent killer. We know that there are various incidents that occur involving CO, and not just non-working smoke detectors during fires, but it's key in preventing CO-related incidents. So we're happy to be here today to provide you with these, and commend the fire staff here at East Gwillimbury for being such a huge supporter of our program, Project Zero. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and members of council. My name is Janelle Scarrett, and I'm here representing the Children's Aid Society. So I'm relatively new to the area and learning about the wonderful partnerships that we do have, of which this is one. And I just wanted to say that I'm really proud of our team and of what I'm learning about this partnership and how we are really helping families in this community. I think it's a really wonderful thing when partners can come together to prioritize the safety of our children, just as our staff do on a daily basis. And part of this program has included our staff being trained in how to inspect the home for smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. And they're doing a lot by being there with families when they're experiencing some of their most vulnerable situations. So I'm so glad to hear about this, because this is a really great way that we are showing ourselves to be caring and compassionate as a community. So I really am so proud of this program and really happy to learn that we are in this partnership. So I just wanted to say that to you and to thank you. The partnership also goes another way, in which we have been working with the fire and EMS services to teach about how to detect child abuse and safety of the children when they go into the home. So I'm really so happy that it's also a two-way partnership, and I'm really pleased with this donation today. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
So thank you, Mike and Janelle. If I can indulge Your Honor, could we go out to the lobby or to the atrium just for a quick photo opportunity?
We certainly can. We'll just call a very short recess. So could I have Councillor Johnson, Councillor Crothers? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much, Chief. It's a reminder to all of us about the smoke alarms. I know over the years, we have had smoke alarms that have saved people in East Gwillimbury, and they are just so important. If we can message it continually, I'd love to be able to do that. It really does make a difference, and we know that. So thank you for bringing it forward to us. And we have item G, adoption of minutes. And this is to adopt the minutes from the special meeting held on January 18th, 2023, and to adopt the council minutes from the council meeting held on January 24th, 2023, moved by Councillor Johns, seconded by Councillor Crone. Thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried. We are now at Development Services. And General Manager Beijing, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, and through you to Council. The first item on under Development Services refers to the same application that you just heard the deputation regarding with Ms. Schofield. So the recommendation has been, or the request to remove it from the list has been reviewed by the Heritage Advisory Committee. Our Manager of Planning is here to speak to it should Council have any questions or wish to discuss it further.
Thank you. Councillor Roy DeClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to suggest that we add another resolution to the resolution that says that the property owner, I'm fine to approve the request to remove it since there is no suggestion that it be designated. But I was going to suggest that we add a resolution that the property owner be encouraged to salvage and reuse the heritage elements in the new home to be constructed.
And we've done that in the past, and it's turned out, I think, quite nice that there is some recognition of a heritage home that has been on the property, and then perhaps it's some wood that is used to frame some doorways or windows that can be salvaged. It means that there was something there that was important in our community, so thank you. Councillor Crothers, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you. We have another one after this, and we had one on our last meeting. Do we know how many more of these might be coming forward in the next month? I see this has been in the works since last April.
Through you, Madam Mayor, our Manager of Planning can speak to that. I believe we have another 4. But I would suggest that this is the process working the way it's meant to work, that the properties were identified, there's a back and forth, there's an assessment by the committee, the Heritage Advisory Committee, who are our volunteer advisory committee, and then should the homeowners have a different perspective or wish to contest whether or not a property should remain on the list, then this is the process of evaluation. It gives us a chance to evaluate whether or not we agree.
I just feel that it's a little bit onerous on the homeowners. She said that the original building permit was applied for last April. And to continue to put residents through this, I'm not sure of the value, because every single time we vote to take them off. So I don't feel that we're really saving any heritage sites. We're just using up a lot of staff time, council time, putting the residents through this. It's their home, their property, especially when the details are on the inside of the home. I'm not sure why we would want to force them to hang on to it. I mean, we listened to her. Her father's been forced to live in a home that's cold and moldy while we deliberate on this. And to me, that's unacceptable. We hired a consultant last year, the year before, to look at our heritage list, and I know there was a number that we didn't follow the consultant's advice and we left them on the list, and now I see what that's doing to our residents, and I felt very, very bad for this resident when you listen to the state of her father's home and that we dragged this out through another winter, and didn't allow him to do what he needed to do to his home. So I'm just wondering if we could bring back that list and the consultant's report, maybe update it, and maybe we can get a bunch of these done in one foul swoop rather than dragging our residents through this one at a time.
Mr. Webster, do you have a comment?
I do, Madam Mayor, very familiar with this program of the Heritage Program. We actually did have a very extensive independent consultant that was going to take a number off and ended up getting a whole bunch added back on, if you recall, under last term. To speak to one way of streamlining that could be a little quicker, it seems that when some of these they go to Heritage Advisory Committee, and as you said, they're all become standard. Heritage Advisory Committee says, yes, it can be removed, but please be mindful of reuse of materials. And I'm wondering if council may also want to take a look at delegated authority for those ones that could be streamlined in a much quicker fashion. So I wholeheartedly support a fulsome review of the list, but we might be able to take a more proactive, quicker approach for residents when the Heritage Advisory Committee has endorsed its removal, subject to a simple condition, and to delegate that authority could be the consideration. And you still have a question about how many are there, and I think it's very few, but I'll refer it back to Ms. Bajie.
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. 4, I believe, that are coming forward in the coming.
I'm sorry, how
There are
many?
four applications that we have on, in our pending list. And I might add that with consideration of delegated authority and perhaps as we're looking at the committee structures, recognizing that we rely on volunteers to be able to provide the assessment, sort of what we might do to sort of support that process and streamline it as well as we move forward.
I think especially when there appears to be a health and safety issue, and that they determined, it was probably been prior to last April, that this home was not fit for the father to live in. They wanted to renovate it to bring it up to code and that, and yet we forced him to spend another winter in there with mold and drafts, and we can't be doing that. Like we have to find a better way. So I'm hoping that we can get a staff report back. I'd be interested to know if the 4 that are coming, and these 2 plus the one from last week, are those the 50 that were added back on? Because if they were, we need to take another look at those 50. And I just think that these are so obvious when they come forward. I think we really need to review that list in a more fulsome way again, so that we don't have this keep happening. Thanks.
Councillor Foster, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a rather deep problem, maybe a little deeper than we think. This house was not recommended to come off the list, if I remember correctly. Victoria, I think I'm right on that one. So it wasn't recommended to come off the list. So the Heritage Advisory Committee has a look at these things, and they try to decide what buildings have attributes that lend to our local history. This one is one that I missed the site visit on this one, but the group did have a look at it and had some suggestions. However, you know, I think there's a process that this needs to go through. The idea of delegating some authority might be an interesting thought process going forward, but I thought it was worthwhile mentioning that with Bill 23, we expect to see some sweeping changes with the heritage information going forward. So I believe we have a report coming to council in the future, I think. That should answer a lot of questions before we jump in and start taking massive numbers off the list. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can confirm we are working on a report with some of those Bill 23 updates and hopefully some process updates as well. We're just waiting on some clarification on some of the regulations related to the changes, and then we will be providing an update that can hopefully deal with some of this.
Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the staff for preparing the report and looking into this. It's, you know, these, as Councillor Carruthers says, these things come up all the time. And it's a balancing act that we have because we want to preserve our history and yet we don't want to financially burden the owners of these homes that would have to pay for the upkeep. Now, Councillor Roy DiClemente has made an amendment or an addition to the motion about if we do remove this house from the list and allow it to be demolished, that they try and salvage, the owner tries to salvage as much of the historical elements of it as possible. I was just curious if Ms. Schofield, who's here today, do you find that, if I may through you, Madam Mayor, may I ask, is that an agreeable situation for you? I think there might be some things, I don't know how sentimental your father is, but if there's elements of the house that they might want to retain for the new, that would be something nice.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor.
Just stand up, please. Just take the microphone.
Yes, there are elements that could be salvaged. The banisters could probably be salvaged to use in the house. Some of the registers and things like that can be removed easily without damage. And possibly the trim. I mean, it just depends how it comes apart when we, if it can be salvaged. But yes, that's definitely something my father is willing to take into consideration.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, I think that's a nice, happy compromise that we could come up with. So, thank you. No further questions.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Roy DiClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was very careful in my selection of words. So I said that the property owner be encouraged rather than it be a condition of removal of the list, so that it's not, if it's possible, wonderful. But if it's not possible, we understand that that's also the case. So I didn't want to tie it to make it a condition of removal from the list, but simply that a note that, recognizing that there are elements of this home that could be reused and not just thrown in the trash. So thank you very much for supporting the suggestion to my colleague members. Thank you.
Thank you. It's all about respecting the heritage. It really is. And I'm from Scarborough, and there were many, many farms in Scarborough when I was a kid. And there is no, there just is no evidence that there were many farms and families that lived in older homes and whatever. Some of them were kept for a little while. They were heritage properties, and they were vandalized and ultimately removed. It's having that interest in where did we come from in East Gwillimbury. And while I didn't come from East Gwillimbury, I know there's members on this council that did. And it's the respect of those people that worked so hard in days when it wasn't easy. So if in fact banisters can be kept and put into another home, I would suggest they could even have a little plaque on them at some point when the house changes hands, just to recognize that there were people here long before, not just a bunch of subdivisions and whatever. So I think it's trying to find a mutual compromise, and I think we found it now. Councillor Crothers, you're absolutely right. We sit on a lot of these for a long period of time, and sometimes it has to do with the house itself and the history, that we have people in the community that actually have logged some of the homes, and it's a matter of making sure that, again, we respect those people who worked very hard in tough times to build it. So I think we're there. Any other questions at all? Not seeing any. Yes.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the motion has been revised. So what I'm going to do is just place the motion before council, and the highlighted blue areas are the two areas of addition. One, the property owner to be encouraged to salvage, and the intent is for the council to approve this request. And the Councillor Carruthers also presented a motion to have staff report back on the town's registry.
Thank you. Be it resolved that Development Services Planning Branch Report DS 2023-03 dated February 7th, 2023, entitled Request to Remove Property from the Town's Registry of Culture Heritage Properties 3550 Bogue Road be received, and that Council approve the request to remove 3550 Bogue Road from the Town's Registry of Cultural Heritage Properties, and that the property owner be encouraged to salvage and reuse heritage elements in the new home to be constructed, and that the council requests staff to conduct a fulsome review of the town's registry list and report back. Council requests that staff, sorry, that's where I'm ended. Any questions on that? Councillor Crothers, go ahead, please.
Can we just put a date on the report back, like Q2 or, so I just don't want it to get lost. I'm wondering if we can just, through you, Mr. Webster, if we can get a approximate time that would be a good time to report back? Is Q2 okay?
We'll add that in there as well. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Crothers, seconded by Councillor LaHaye. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. We'll move along to item number 2.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is also a request to, related to heritage, and it's request to demolish an accessory structure. In this case, it's a barn that was in poor repair. The Heritage Advisory Committee has reviewed it and supports the request to demolish the structure, replacing with an updated structure. Again, with encouragement to salvage any materials that are practical.
I think barn board is a premium. I don't think there'll be a problem in trying to find people who might want to reuse that, for sure. Any questions, comments? I'm not seeing any. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Crone. Councillor Johns. Go away. All those in favor? And that's carried.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the third item is a year-end report provided by Shades of Hope Wildlife Rehabilitation, really for council's information to understand the activities that this organization undertook on our behalf. Happy to entertain any questions, and our manager of bylaws is here as well.
Any questions, comments? I just want to thank them. If they're not doing it, it's not getting done. And we certainly have a lot of wildlife that does need rehabilitation, unfortunately, with traffic and other issues. Councillor Crothers, go ahead, please.
Very good point about the traffic. That brings us back to the road ecology. We've mentioned a number of times, and I'm not sure where that is with staff. We're supposed to report back on that, but it's something that this is the result of not having good road ecology. As the town gets built up and gets busier, more and more animals are going to be getting hit on the road, and we need to be looking at ways to mitigate that, and I think that needs to be more of a priority moving forward.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Foster, Councillor Crone, all those in favor? That's carried.
Through you, Madam Mayor, item 4, at council's request, staff were asked to come back with a recommended approach to resolve some issues with regard to feral cats. So the recommendation is that this organization be supported to provide services to East Gwillimbury to ensure that they trap and neuter and return feral cats. Again, our manager of bylaws is here, and we can certainly speak to any questions that council may have.
Questions? Councillor LaHaye, go ahead, please.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. It's more of an observation than a question. This is an investment. It represents an investment in the community because how we treat animals in the community reflects our values as a community. And there's the potential, it poses a potential public health issue as well. If there are in excess of 300 feral cats, then there's potential disease transmission to people and to the people's pets. And so this is an investment that I think is a very wise one to make at this time.
Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to speak in support of this. I know that this organization has been providing service to our town already, and so I think it's more of a recognition of the fact that they have been helping our community, and it's probably more of an issue in Ward 3 because of our rural nature, but it is an important issue, and it does need addressing, and I'm glad that we can help out in this manner. So thank you very much for bringing this forward.
Councillor Crothers, go ahead, please.
Thank you for everyone who's supporting this. I think it's important work, as has already been said. And to quote the mayor from the last item, if they're not doing it, it's not getting done. And I think that goes for this one as well. So very much appreciative of this type of support.
Councillor Crothers, sorry, DiClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't disagree with my council colleagues. This is important work that needs to be done. However, I do still have a concern that this is, as Councillor Leahy said, this is an investment in animal welfare, but it's also an investment that's enriching private property owners. These are cat colonies that are on private property. And while the feral cat rescue and the Ms. Edwards are doing incredible work, I do feel that the property owners have an obligation to contribute towards the expense of this initiative. Our animal control bylaw speaks to permitting animals to roam at large. It speaks to feeding wildlife. It speaks to care provisions and ensuring that animals on your property are not put into conditions that endanger them, and that you can't have more than 6 animals. So from my perspective, the property owners that are hosting these cat colonies are in contravention of our animal control bylaw, and we need to try and recoup some of these expenses.
Do you have an idea how we might recoup some of these expenses?
Perhaps through you, Madam Mayor, we could hear from staff. I know you've got Ms. Nichols and Ms. Beger in the room, and maybe they'll have some ideas.
I certainly will ask them to come to the microphone.
If I may, through you, Madam Mayor, I'll ask Manager Nichols to speak to this. We are somewhat limited in terms of the way the current bylaw is structured in terms of penalties and fines. Jen can speak specifically to that. But certainly we've had discussions with Councillor Roy DiClemente about working collaboratively with the property owners to seek their support. I guess the caveat there is that it would be on a voluntary basis that they would based on the current structure of the bylaw.
Through Madam Mayor, similar to Ms. Belgian had indicated that, yeah, we can work with the property owner, but it is more of a volunteer, should they wish to provide them monetary compensation for helping them out. We do, to where Councillor Roy DiClemente's point, do have violations potentially within our animal care and control bylaw that state that you can't feed wildlife. So there are fines associated with that should staff feel that's required. But, I mean, as a first step, we can certainly reach out to I know of one property owner that has at the Flat House trailer park in particular. I can reach out to her and just see if donation or some kind of monetary compensation could be made to that organization.
Thank you. Councillor Cohn, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you to Ms. Nichols, thank you your take on this. I have to think that there's an opportunity for us here to review our bylaws and maybe add some teeth where it's lacking. And it might be easier said than done. You're in the field and you know better than I. But I think this could be an opportunity because it's, to Councillor Roy DiClemente's point, it seems like we're subsidizing bad behavior of certain property owners. And so I think everyone has a responsibility here. We're doing the right thing, though, but I think maybe this is an opportunity for a bylaw review and see what we could do to add a little more teeth to it so that we can offset some of these costs. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Leahy, go ahead, please.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. These are very modest amounts. I can't imagine that they come anywhere close to covering the real costs of neutering and spaying that number of cats. And so this is a good faith contribution to potentially addressing an issue that could become a much more expensive problem to solve in the future. So I fully support these amounts, as well as the motion to support our partners in this challenging issue. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Councillor Roy DiClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've posted a proposed resolution into the chat that staff be directed to work with the private property owners to recoup some or all of the costs associated with this program. It's not about not doing this. This needs to be done. But if I had a raccoon in my attic and I called for help, I wouldn't expect that the municipality would come and get the raccoon out of my attic and take care of it privately. This is private property, and if I had been harboring that raccoon and giving him cat food and taking care of him, then I have an obligation to address that activity and that behavior that's taking place. And whether that was my tenant or whether that was my own behavior, it's still my land, and I still have an obligation to address that. So I want to move forward with this. This is the right thing to do for these animals and for the community. But I also want to make sure that we're respectful and not setting a dangerous precedent for future situations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crothers, go ahead, please.
Well, I agree that we should make every effort to recoup these costs. I just want to caution that not every property owner wants to allow the rescue onto their property. And if we go too hard on trying to recoup the costs, what will end up happening is the owners will not let the rescue onto the property, and these cat colonies will grow and more animals will be at harm. So I just, to recoup a few $100s this way or that way, and probably you won't recoup it. These are not rich property owners that are doing this. They don't have the money to fix their cats to begin with, and forcing them isn't going to make them have that money. But just be very cautious of unintended consequences of that, because it's very, very hard for this rescue to get into some of these properties, because the homeowners or the property owners don't want anyone to see what's going on there. So we have to just be very, very cautious. I fully support the principle of recouping the costs. We just need to be aware of the unintended consequences that these colonies will be shut off from the rescue, and they will just grow. So let's just be careful of that.
Do we have any understanding of any other municipalities that are taking this on as a project? Clearly, it's not part of our mandate. However, I have a cat, and others here as well do. I guess my concern is that we do it tomorrow, and 2 years tomorrow, we're back again, or beyond that, because we just know that we won't get every cat. Are there other municipalities that are reaching out in this fashion?
Not that I'm aware of currently. From the bylaw perspective from our office, we don't get a lot of calls of this type.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Georgina has been subsidizing the spay and neuter for many years for this particular rescue. And while the problem won't go away completely, you're 100% right. But what we're trying to address right now is what happened over COVID when the spay and neuter clinics were closed. People got pets. They didn't keep them inside. They couldn't spay and neuter them because the clinics were closed. And the program has grown astronomical. In the past, there's only been a handful of cats in EG. Last year, you can see from this report, there was 90. And that's why this is set up that it would be $5,000 for this year and half that amount for the following year, because we believe it will become under control over the next few years if we can just get on top of it. It's a very effective program, so while it won't go away completely, it should be able to be handled by the rescue going forward if we can just get on top of it now. It's kind of like weeds in your garden. If you can get on top of it, then the maintenance going forward isn't actually all that much.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions or comments at this time. Do I have a mover? Councillor Crothers, seconded by,
Through Madam Mayor,
Yep.
there was an addition proposed by Councillor Roy DeClemente, so just making sure that that's the intent.
I
to
will
move it
read,
with them.
I will read it out once I get a seconder. Councillor Crone, that staff be directed to work with private property owners to recoup some or all of the costs associated with this program. I can support this now, but I don't want to see it back here in 2 years and 4 years and continue. It would appear to me that we can't get every cat. They're too fast. So this is the start of something different, and perhaps there's an organization that will pick it up as well. But we have an obligation at this point, and we have an opportunity. So with that, now, did I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. We will move along to Community Parks, Recreation, Culture. General Manager Carmazin. Thank you, ladies. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, we have one prepared agenda item today. It's a memo related to the Manor Forest Trail alignment. Just some introductory comments. Trail use and this specific trail alignment has been identified in a number of approved planning and guiding principle documents with the town. Our department master plan documents from 2010 and 2018 identify over 80% of our residents have indicated they use trails and would like to see further expansion and enhancement of our trail system. Our council approved 2012 Active Transportation and Trails Master Plan, and our updated master plan provides this trail alignment, as well as our approved plans of subdivision within this community, an agreement with the developer and notice provided to residents who have purchased properties adjacent to the trail alignment. Staff have prepared the memo today detailing out our public consultation process, which includes individual resident consultation, as well as a public open house. We will follow up after that open house with a thorough report back to council on our findings from the open house in public session. Happy to answer any questions related to the memo.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. People may want to pack a snack because I have a few questions here for you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Carmazin, thank you for this. I will confess that I don't know a lot about this project, and I certainly haven't heard. I didn't hear much about it during my last term. I think this was all decided prior to my term on council. But even during the election campaign, and I consulted with my ward mate, we didn't hear much about this, but I understand there are some concerns about this proposed trail. Could you just give me a little background on where this all originated from, just to help my level of understanding? Because I need to really gather some information on this for my own edification.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there is a listing of obviously approvals as well as guiding principal documents. I did note our Parks and Rec master planning process, which identifies the requirements to build trails within communities for residents. In addition to that, our active transportation and trails master plan clearly shows an alignment through this natural heritage space within the community. In addition, our approved plans of subdivision also show the trail alignment within the community, and our approved development agreement also commits the developer to building the trail, which is significant infrastructure for the town. And we've also provided notice to those residents that live adjacent to the trail system, in particular the newer residents coming into the neighborhood through their agreements of purchase and sale, noting that a trail will be built through that open space. So I hope that provides a little bit of context and a little bit of history as far as what the approvals were and what the support was for this particular trail alignment.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you, Mr. Karmazin. I appreciate that. So the original owners there, you're telling me they would have been advised in the purchase of sale agreements that there was going to be a trail behind them? I just want to be clear, because I'm hearing from some that they said they had no knowledge of this. So I just want to be crystal clear.
The residents along Manor Forest were advised through the public process with each of those approvals. There would have been public notification to the existing residents, not the new residents along Manor Forest, but the existing residents on Viscount.
Okay. Okay, so the people in Manor Forest, would they have been, through you, Madam Mayor, would they have been in the sales office? Would they have seen a map of the neighborhood and be told that there was going to be a trail behind them, or is that just covered off in the site plan?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's actually covered off in their agreement of purchase and sale.
Okay.
So that it's clearly noted as a term and condition that a trail will be built in the open space adjacent to their property.
Okay, so those folks, but the people on Viscount would not necessarily have been made aware of that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct.
Okay.
The folks on Viscount would have been privy to the public consultation process for any of the previous approvals, such as the plans of subdivision, the active transportation and trails master plan process, those approval processes.
Oh, okay, thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Karmazin. That helps a lot with my understanding. With regards to the land where the trail is going through, is that all regulated by the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it is regulation lands, and it is under regulation by the authority, correct?
Okay, so we have to work with them quite a bit to, I'm concerned knowing how parts of Viving Creek Park, with heavy rain and in the spring, the flooding, the trails sometimes, not all portions of them are passable. Do you foresee that issue here, or is it going to be a challenge as well?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have achieved an approval from the authority with the alignment as well as the design of the trail system, and we would consider stormwater management with that design in addition to natural heritage such as removal of trees and replacement plantings, things of that nature.
Through you, Madam Mayor, with respect to the removal of trees and natural heritage, how much of an impact do you think it'll be to put this trail in?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't have the specific count on the inventory of trees that would be removed and replaced. However, with a follow-up report to council after the public meeting, we can provide those details.
Yeah, okay, I think that would be appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Karmazin. Sorry to keep going on this. I just have a couple more. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The trail maintenance, I presume, would be done the same way as our other trails that staff would attend to if there's trees or like fallen limbs or leaves or garbage, that our staff would attend to it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct.
Okay. And, okay. And so I know one of the concerns has been around public, the communication around this. You're not averse to having more public meetings on this if there's a need from the community to talk about it some more?
Through you, Madam Mayor, our intent was to provide this public meeting as a starting point, and then report back further to council after this public meeting to listen to our residents and determine our next steps from there. So that is, we're committed to that process. In addition to that, we are doing individual consultation with those residents that either cannot attend the public meeting or that simply reach out to us and would like to have further discussion and consultation related to the trail alignment, proximity to their property. Could be privacy fencing, screening, buffer screening and planting, things of those nature.
So through you, Madam Mayor, with respect to fencing and screening, will the residents whose property is adjacent to this trail, will they need a chain link fence? Will we be putting up a chain link fence to border that, or is that not the case?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it would be our responsibility through the developer to install the town standard, which is a 4-foot chain link fence that
Okay.
would demarcate and provide a boundary between the public lands and the private property.
Okay. All right. Thank you. No further questions, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Roy DeClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, just a comment. I do, here's the history lesson. I do recall that this trail was planned for quite some time. This is very, very long overdue. Those houses on Manorhampton have been occupied for years, and that trail was supposed to have been built by the developer years ago. And I do know that over the years, the residents on Viscount and a couple of the other adjacent areas have received correspondence about this. So this should not necessarily come to them as a shock, because we have been kind of working at this by fits and starts. And I'm glad to see that it's actually moving forward. Finally, this is creating an asset on public lands. And I know that Mr. Karmazin and his staff are going to ensure that the developer is held to their responsibilities and will build to our standards according to the Active Transportation and Trails Master Plan. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I'm not seeing any. I have a resolution. Be it resolved that Community Parks, Recreation and Culture Memorandum dated February 7th, 2023, entitled Public Open House Notice, Averton Phase 3 Development, Detailed Design Requirements and Trail Construction Update be received. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Crone, Councillor LaHaye. All those in favor? And that's carried. Are there any other items at this time?
Through you, Madam Mayor, nothing further at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move along to administration with Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Today we have one report we usually try to get this report dealt with before the Ontario Family Day, the holiday coming in a couple of Mondays from now. This is our annual report regarding statutory, public, and proposed holiday closing schedule. It's been prepared by our Human Resources branch, and if there's any questions, I will ask Amita Gandhi to speak to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, staff? I'm not seeing any. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Foster, Councillor Crone, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Is there anything else under administration, Mr. Webster?
For today, Madam Mayor, just the advisement that yourself did meet with MPP Mulroney, and we have an update planned for other business from yourself
Yes.
and Deputy Velchich and our office coordinator for the Mayor's office, Gina Casey, joined us at that meeting as well.
Thank you. Move along to item K, Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services. Mr. Molinari?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one memo on today's agenda. Good news story. We're very pleased to bring this memo forward with regards to Mount Albert Road pedestrian crossover. And just advise that this particular piece of infrastructure was approved at Regional Council, and the project will be funded through the development community, namely Sharon Development Group and Wycliffe Thornridge, and we're working with them to complete the design and expedite getting this very important linkage installed for the community. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Foster, go ahead, please.
Not a question, Madam Mayor, but thank you. Just a comment. I know that from my past work with the Trails Advisory Committee, they will be ecstatic that this is finally happening. This one was a bit of a push during our last term of council. I don't think it was before that, but during the last term of council. So this is much needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johns, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, I just wanted to bring forward kind of doubling down on the importance of the continued exploration at the region of the potential future signalized intersections that are identified there on the attachment. You know, having that crosswalk is incredible, and I think you know, some of the cars traveling eastbound along Mount Albert Side Road there, as they come up and over the hill and then down the hill, obviously the speed limit's being obeyed, then there's never a problem. But I think that from residents entering and exiting on Murrell, and then also coming in eastbound towards that pedestrian crosswalk, is something that should be continued to remain at the forefront of the region's execution. So if we can bring that forward, that would be appreciated. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? I'm not seeing any. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Johns? Councillor Crothers? All those in favor? And that's carried. Might there be anything else under your department?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nothing further at this time.
Great, thank you. We'll move along to Emergency and Community Safety Services. Chief McKenzie, and I see that you have no other items at this time, but just in case there is.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, nothing on the agenda, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief? I'm not seeing any. We'll move along to item M, and that's Corporate Services. Mr. Velchik, go ahead, please.
Nothing to add, Madam Mayor.
Any questions of Mr. Velchik? I'm not seeing any. We will move along to Finance General Manager Marshall.
Nothing at this time, Madam Mayor.
Any questions of Mr. Marshall? Not seeing any. Legal and Property Services, Ms. Ingram.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there's no reports on this agenda today.
Thank you very much. We're at item P, and that is the 2023 Proposed Business Plan and Budget Wastewater Budget. Mr. Webster.
Madam Mayor, we move in, I think now, is this a budget committee? I would, or are we going to deal with this at council?
Through Madam Mayor, this will be dealt with in council.
Okay, so, but the recommendations of this will not be ratified today, I do not believe. That's not our intention. Our intention is that they would be reviewed and brought forward to a subsequent council session. I was going to propose, Madam Mayor, a very brief adjournment, and it'll allow us to retool the room. I know we want to move Mike Molinari's team and our budget team, as a matter of fact, into place here. So maybe if you give us 5 or 10 minutes to position the folks, we could have a water and wastewater budget session.
I'm looking at the clock, it's 11:12. Might I suggest 20 minutes? Is that too long, or you're fine with that, 11:30?
11:30, we have this important matter, the water and wastewater budget to be dealt with today, and as well an in-camera session as well. So
Thank you.
two items left.
Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Johns, Councillor Hay, all those in favor? That's carried. We'll be back at 11:30. Thank you. We are now going to resume the remainder of today's session by moving into our Budget Committee. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Foster, Councillor LaHaye, all those in favor? And that's carried. For this portion of the meeting, only one mover is required, so I've moved it twice then. Great. Item number 1, 2023 proposed water and wastewater budget, and I will turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good morning, Madam Mayor, members of Budget Committee. We're here to discuss the proposed water and wastewater budget for 2023. If you could go to the next slide, please. For this portion of a committee, what we're planning to do is I'm going to ask General Manager Molinari and his team to go through some of their key priorities and metrics for the water and wastewater budget. They'll turn it back to me, and I'll go through a bit of the overview of a rate study that we did for a component of our water and wastewater rates. Go through some of those rates, and then we'll go back and start discussing in detail the 2023 proposed water and wastewater budget. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Molinari's team to go through some of the objectives and metrics.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Mr. Marshall, and maybe we can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so I'm very pleased to have Jeff Meggett, our Director of Operations, and Christy Beatty, our Manager of Water and Wastewater, here with me today to present the Water Wastewater Budget to Council. Jeff and Christy, over the past couple of years, have repositioned and advanced a very cohesive, seasoned, and dedicated water and wastewater team that is doing a great job of planning and managing our water wastewater infrastructure and ensuring our drinking water is safe for our residents. So in terms of our key priorities and objectives, the activities of the water wastewater branch touch all 4 areas of the strategic plan. By planning our future infrastructure and ensuring it meets the long-term needs of the town through our water wastewater master plan and preparing and implementing our annual capital plan and 10-year forecast. Also by maintaining our water wastewater infrastructure to ensure we are delivering safe water to our residents efficiently by minimizing waste such as flushing and continually trying to raise the bar through continuous improvement. Also this year we have the added responsibility of managing the transfer of responsibility for our environmental compliance applications, otherwise known as ECAs, which was downloaded to the town from the province. This will require changes to administer these applications and approvals, as well as require the town to establish a framework for developing its own ECA for our own water, storm, and sanitary infrastructure, while maintaining the infrastructure in a way that makes us compliant with the new and comprehensive ECAs that we're developing. Next slide, please. So in terms of, let me just get this. In terms of some of our departmental metrics, if we look at the top, we've got the total kilometers of infrastructure since 2018. We can see that there's been a steady incline or increase over time due to growth as expected. In terms of our annual water regulatory samples, we see that there was a drop between 2018 and 2019. That's really due to repositioning of our testing with the Ministry of the Environment and being able to reduce those samples while maintaining our compliance. And since 2019, similar to total kilometers of infrastructure, our regulatory samples have been increasing as the town continues to grow. Similarly, for our total number of active accounts, in 2018, we're between 5,000 and 10,000 accounts, and in 2022, we are pretty much at the 10,000 mark, which again accounts for growth as over the past few years. Next slide, please. Okay, and I'll pass it over to General Manager Marshall.
Thank you. I don't know if committee had any questions regarding the metrics or performance indicators.
Questions? I'm not seeing any.
Okay, so I'll continue then. So for the past couple budget committee sessions, we've been talking about three components of the town's budget. This is the final component that we would be discussing for 2023, which is the component that is supported by mainly water and wastewater rates. And it makes up about 10.9 million of the total $68 million request for 2023. Next slide, please. So the main driver in the town's water and wastewater budget expenditures is the charge the region applies for providing servicing to the town. So York Region is responsible for providing water supply and treating wastewater for the town. And those costs make up approximately 2/3 of the town's water and wastewater operating budget. So as I mentioned previously, the region has approved annual increases of 3.3% to the amount they charge their municipalities. And for the town, you'll see later as we get into the details, the overall cost increase for the region's supply of water and treating wastewater is about $465,000, and about 30% of that is strictly due to the rate increase. The balance is due to a projected volume increase that we're anticipating in 2023. The other thing that we should mention in terms of providing water is traditional, well, not traditionally, but historically, there has been some requirement to have some water flushing in certain areas of the town. And recently, there has been some requirement to have some additional flushing in the Sharon and Bales communities. And that flushing has amounted to about $400,000 in costs that have been incurred. So Mr. Molinari's team and the region have been in consultation and working to find some solutions to reducing that flushing requirement and the cost implications associated with that.
Councillor LaHaye, you have a question? Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. So in understanding the slide, I just wanted to clarify. I understand that 2/3 of the town's water and wastewater budget is costs from the region, York Region. So in our overall property taxes, and 40% of it goes to the region when we're paying our property taxes, what portion of the 40% that goes to the region is the water and wastewater costs?
So through you, Madam Mayor, the water and wastewater budget is separate from the property taxes. So that amount, about the 40% that goes to the region, that is strictly the tax bill that residents and businesses receive. This water rate is strictly for the people and businesses that are actually using water. So there's the 10,000 accounts are ones that receive this bill, and they're the ones that we're collecting money to pay for these costs from.
Mr. Webster, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to comment on this because we focus on our water rates a lot, and we used to be a lot higher, and with our 0% increases over the past many years, and I believe even proposed in this budget. I don't want to give away the final card, but we are absorbing significant increases from the region. The region of York is responsible for providing potable water at an acceptable standard to 9 municipalities. We are at the northern end of a system that's been problematic for many years. And the problematic area is we used to be entirely, EG used to be entirely serviced by the Yonge Street Aquifer, which, for lack of better explanation, I'll try to be at a CAO level, is a large lake underground. And it provides potable, safe water to our community. It is treated, but it's very hard water. And that's what leads to the buildup in requirement for flushing at the homeowner or business level, and in the pipes on the streets. The region has introduced over the past several years, I would say maybe a decade, supply from Lake Ontario. And so we have a mixed supply here now. And my understanding from our experts is the mix causes issues as well as being at the northern end of the system of distribution. And so we've had an issue where water, and it initially started in Harvest Hills community many years ago, where in order to reach the standards of drinkable water with chlorine residuals at the proper levels, there was inordinate amount of flushing required. I see Councillor Johns is very attuned to this. And so the Harvest Hill storm pond was getting filled on a regular, if not daily basis, with millions of meters of water that wasn't up to standard. And we rolled up our sleeves with the region and Newmarket, because it was a multi situation to solve, and worked out something that's helped solve the situation in Harvest Hills. So we do not have significant flushing. It happened to transmit the problem. This is like a flume, as it's explained to me, to the Bales community. And we ended up having flushing in the Bales community and this similar problem. And again, solutions were introduced and the problem seemed to be solved until election time this year. And at election time, when we had some of our councillors knocking on doors in the Sharon community, it was very specific, the feedback we were getting. They were saying, I could pick streets out, and this came from both Councillor Johns and Councillor Roy DeClemente, where people were saying their water quality, something had happened to it. And it was news to the staff team. We followed up, and Mike's Molinari's team has looked at it, and we are into another significant flushing issue now. And apart from the dollars, it's just a wasteful activity to just be flushing water at will. And in the past, we've worked with the region for solutions. I believe we have another capital project in this year's budget to take a look at it. But at some point, I think the region has to be accountable to us, as they are to the other 8 municipalities, to provide water and not make it part of our budget for this wasteful, inadequate water. And, I think it's strong words from myself as administrator, but 400,000 is not a small amount. That when you look at what we might be wanting to contribute to assets and asset management, that would go a long way in going to something useful. So bear in mind that we wanted to be very transparent about this as part of the budget. We have another issue. There is a capital project that Mike and his team are prepared to speak to, but our tactics for resolution might have to take a different approach this time around.
Councillor Johns, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and thank you for CAO Webster for the commentary on that. I think that, prior to your speaking, I was thinking about how to bring the issue up, and I think that for a regular, everyday consumer, the expectation is to be able to turn on the tap and have potable water flowing out of it. And obviously, there's larger regulations surrounding that. But I think for us, as we are talking about this from a budgetary standpoint, and recognizing and standing in front of the fact that we are flushing the system in order to make sure that this water is flowing, we are paying our provider for the services that which we aren't receiving. So recognizing that we are standing in front of that, I'm hoping that also staff is also standing in front of that in the very spirited way and defiant way of saying we are paying for a service that we aren't receiving. And I think that it is very clear, based on all of the efforts through flushing, that the documentation is there right down to we have flushed X amount, and as a result of you're not providing the service that we are tendering you to provide. So on behalf of the residents who are paying for this service that we aren't providing, I am glad that you are standing in front of that, so thank you.
Other questions, comments? I'm not seeing any.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So the town's water and wastewater rates are made up of two components. One is the variable rate component, which is based on usage. The other component is what we consider as a fixed charge, and that fixed charge covers ongoing maintenance and testing and eventual replacement of the assets. So when someone is ready to turn on the tap or flush the toilet, the system is available and ready to use. So the charge that is currently applied is consistent among all types of units. So a single-family dwelling pays the same fixed charge as a large industrial or commercial unit would. And so that doesn't necessarily reflect the wear and tear that the potential unit could have on the system, which is kind of counter to how we're trying to develop this fixed charge. Also, there's a bit of an anomaly with some of our multi-unit residential developments. So right now, they would be charged per unit. So even though there's one bulk meter that's being used to service that community. So if there was a subdivision with 10 units that were connected to the one bulk meter, they get charged 10 individual charges. And so that's been the practice lately. There's been a couple of developments, probably about 4 or 5, that are charged differently. So one of the things we wanted to do was bring consistency into how we charge. So what we've done is we hired Hempson Consulting, who did our water rate study and our financial plan, to take a look at best practices among municipalities to see how a fixed charge would be should be developed. And what they've come back with is looking at a fixed charge based on the size of the meter that is servicing the unit. And that is a representation of capacity, which is also representation of the potential wear and tear that a unit could have on the system, which means that they should be contributing towards that replacement. So when we took a look at our customer base, there'd be about 99% of the customers or accounts would see no change. They're at the 5/8 or 3/4 inch meters, so they would not be impacted by a change in the rate structure. There's about 150 accounts that are above that 5/8 or 3/4 inch meters that would see some change if we change the rates. So also using a meter size, using a rate based on meter size would also make a consistent methodology through all our accounts. So they have recommended that we move towards a charge based on meter rates. And that's also the American Water Works Association, the FCM and National Research Council have also recommended as a best practice using a fixed rate structure based on a meter rate, a meter size, as a best practice amongst municipalities. Next slide, please. So Hempson Consulting recommended that we use the methodology adopted by the American Water Works Association, which bases the charge on the potential capacity of the meter. So you'll see here that this is what the charges would look like based on their methodology. And this methodology is also used by other municipalities, including a couple within York Region. So we have proposed that this would be our new structure and proposed a phase-in of the rates over 3 years. So based on the approximately 150 units or accounts that we have, 10 are over 2 inches. So the majority of them are 2 inches and under, and about 60% of them are the 1 inch capacity. So that means they would see, once the rates are fully rolled out, they would see an increase of about $276 a year on their bills. So.
Go ahead, please.
Okay.
Can you give us an idea of who these would be? Are these small businesses? Who are we talking about?
So through you, Madam Mayor, so the ones that are over 2 inches are a couple of units on Bales Drive and some of the units on Yonge and around Green Lane. So they're the larger ones.
Commercial.
They're commercial.
Thank you.
Yes, all these ones are basically commercial except for the couple of the multi-unit residential ones. And they're actually, most of them will experience a decrease.
Councillor Lahey, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you. So the bottom line is, if we're making a change and we're going to have larger bulk meters and the charge is going to be based on the meter size, is this going to result in a savings across the board for bulk meter holders?
Through you, Madam Mayor, right now, if you have a meter that is over, that is 1 inch or over, you're actually paying, you would be paying, sorry, let me rephrase that. So if you go to a new structure that we're proposing here, anyone over 3/4 of an inch would be paying more than what they're currently paying now. So depending on the size of their meter, that would be their increase. So 60% of them would see an increase of about $276 a year.
So, just to follow up. So what is the benefit to change to the American Water Association best practices? What is the?
Yeah. So through you, Madam Mayor, there's a couple of benefits. One is that we would have now a consistent methodology on how we would charge all units. Like right now, we have only about 4 or 5 multi-unit residential units, but we're getting more. And right now, they're a bit inconsistent in the way that we're charging them just because of history and how they've come on board. So in the future, we have a consistent method that charges people what they should be paying. 2, it's also arguably a fairer method of making a charge to contribute towards the replacement of our assets. So if I was an owner of a home in East Gwillimbury and I found out I was paying the same to the fixed charge as someone like a Costco or something like that, I don't know if that would be a fair thing to say. So this kind of makes the burden a little fairer than how we've been doing it now.
It's all about messaging, isn't it?
That's true, yes.
It'll be extremely important.
Yes.
When we get down to actual messaging, these people that some have been paying, and they're going to, we have to bring them all in at the same time. Thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead, please.
Madam Mayor, I think my ward mate, Councillor Roy DiClemente, had her hand up for.
She does. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Councillor Johns. I guess what I'd like to better understand is, through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Marshall, what is the challenge that we're trying to address in changing the fixed rate for the larger size meters? And how much incremental revenue is this going to bring in for the water budget? And thirdly, my understanding is that a few years ago we changed the variable rate based on volume. So the people who would presumably have a larger meter size are a heavier water user, and people who are using more were being billed a different rate. Are we proposing to change that? Because I thought that was, when we did that change, that was why we were trying to make it fair, so that residential water users weren't being penalized and paying the same rate as somebody like a car wash who's revenue generating based on water usage.
Okay, so through you, Madam Mayor, I don't know if I caught all three of them. One was the challenge that we're trying to resolve. The challenge to me, I think we're trying to resolve is trying to get a fixed charge that is consistent and equitable for everyone who is a user. So having it based on meter size, like right now, part of the challenge we have with our multi-unit residential units is like one subdivision gets charged per unit. Some get charged a rate for 3 units. So it's not consistent, so we want to make that fair. So that's the first challenge that we're trying to achieve. Second is we want to make sure that people that are putting stress on the system are paying their share to contribute towards repairing and replacing the system. So right now, you can argue that that's not really the case. So this methodology helps resolve that issue.
Okay, and so how much money is this going to raise, this change? How much incremental revenue are we going to see?
So it works out to about $120,000 a year.
And then the third question I had, which was the rambling one, which was more along the lines of, a few years ago, we addressed high water usage by changing our variable rate, so that if you were a high water user, you were paying more once you hit a threshold. I think there was a deemed minimum usage, and that was the basic fee. And then if you used more and you were a high water user, for example, you were running a car wash, you were paying more for the water that went through your meter. Is that not the case? Are we not? That's where I thought we were introducing equity into the system.
So through you, Madam Mayor, we no longer have a fixed minimum charge. We do have the split charge, but I guess to me, it's more for, conservation. So it rewards people who are using less water, and that's one of the things that a resident can control, is how much they use. So based on that, we wanted to reward people who were using less, and those who are high users, they should pay more. So that's the methodology towards why we had that variable, the tiered rate on the variable charge.
So I guess that's where the crux of my question is if we're charging people more to use more, and we're disincentivizing the lack of conservation by charging people more, is that not where we're introducing that fairness? And so it feels like we may be double dipping, in a sense, that we're charging more for the high volume and we're charging them more because they have a big meter.
So through you, Madam Mayor, I think there's two parts to it. There's one part is the actual use of the water, and the second part is the use of the system. So if you're a high water user, you're using up more of the system's useful life. So you should be, to me, and I guess to the American Water Works Association, you should be contributing more to that eventual replacement because you are using more to it. So to me, it's not double dipping, it's two parts to that whole full cost recovery.
Anything else? Counselor?
If I could, Madam Mayor, just briefly, I'm not operating at full capacity. Was I correct in hearing that we are flushing $400,000 worth of water annually?
Yep.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, go ahead.
At our
Through-
cost?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is correct. This year, we did flush about $400,000 worth of water. It came across my desk in the fall, and we've been working very closely with the region in order to determine the nature of the problem and how to resolve that. And as per CAO Webster's comments previously, we have a capital project proposed. Given the expensive nature of flushing, we have a capital project that's been listed that would give us some funds to work with cooperatively with the region and the town of Newmarket in order to assess what's going on and determine what sort of positive resolution we can achieve, similar to the study that we completed previously on Green Lane.
Is there an opportunity to recover that at any point?
Through you, Madam Mayor, as it stands right now, we are holding off on payments for some of that water in order to keep some pressure on, in order to be able to have those conversations. And recovery, yes. We believe that what we're hopeful is that we can find some sort of mechanism to reduce the flushing so that the problem is reduced and minimized, and B, if there is flushing that's required, some equitable way of being able to divide those costs.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm having deja vu. We dealt with this in the Green Lane system. We argued that we weren't going to be paying, to Councillor John's point, you know, we are a customer of the region. We're purchasing a product that we cannot sell to our customers at a cost of 11 to 12%, depending on what year you look at a cost of 11 to 12% of our overall account. 10% or more of what we're buying from our supplier, we cannot use. Again, as I said, I'm having deja vu. We've dealt with this in the past through the Green Lane system. This should not be continuing to happen, Madam Mayor. Like I said, I'm having deja vu. This is completely inappropriate, and we need to be dealing with this on an urgent basis. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we can agree more. We do believe this is an urgent matter, and we are in discussions with the region in order to resolve this. It's somewhat of a complex issue. There's a lot of variables associated with it. What we feel is happening is what's referred to as a hydraulic dead end. So we have water from the north in wells, and we have lake-based water in the south that's all coming up, and this hydraulic dead end is where those two, where the fresh water from Lake Ontario and the well-based water interact. And depending on how much flow demand is being used by houses, et cetera, and businesses, and what the valving is happening at the region, and how much water is in the towers, that hydraulic dead end moves from the Newmarket area through EG and back and forth. And that's the hydraulic dead end that we believe is responsible for some of that poor water quality in the Sharon area. So there's water that's in the town system that could be decaying in our distribution system as well as in the region. So it's not as simple as just saying it's all the region. The town has a component of this. So does Newmarket, and really it's a matter of the three groups working together to find the problem, define it, and to be able to manage it and reduce that overall flushing. And I'm confident that working with those two groups, that we will find a solution the same way that we found a very good solution for the Yonge Street condition.
Madam Mayor, I think Mr. Molinari has the quote of the day. The hydraulic dead end is today's big word. I guess from my perspective, we've done this before. To Mr. Molinari's point, we've worked with these people before. We've had this problem before. So I'm hopeful that this solution is sooner rather than later. Through you, Madam Mayor, since we've been flushing further since the fall, have we been seeing any change in the aesthetic quality of the water that's hitting our residents' taps?
Through you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of the flushing is to ensure that the water quality at the taps is safe and potable, and that is our primary concern, and that has been achieved. But there are aesthetic issues that because of that interface that residents are noticing. But and at the end of the day, all the water that is being consumed within East Gwillimbury is safe for residents.
Yes, I realize that it's safe. I was choosing my words carefully in saying that the aesthetic question. So now that we've been flushing, have we been able to address the aesthetic issue?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, that issue will continue to be present, and that's something that we're going to have to work with the region on in order to improve that overall water quality.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I'm not seeing any others. Go ahead, please.
Next slide, please. So to move on to an overview of the proposed budget for 2023, for 99% of the accounts in East Gwillimbury, they will not see a change in their water or wastewater rates. For the remaining approximately 1%, there'll be a phased-in change, which averages about $560 a year based on all the types of connections. The overall increase proposed in this budget is about 8%. A bit over half of that is due to York Region's servicing costs. There's 3 capital projects that are being proposed, and Mr. Molinari's team will be walking you through those later on in the presentation. Next slide, please. So just to go over briefly, these are the rates that we're proposing for 2023. So this remains, this is the variable component of the rates. Once again, these rates have been the same since 2020. So this will be the 4th year that these rates will stay the same. Next slide, please. This is what we've proposed for the fixed component of the charge. This is the first step of the proposed phase-in. So you see that the fixed charge for the 5/8 and 3/4 inch remains the same, which is for approximately 99% of our clients. And there is a similar charge for the wastewater component of the charge. Next slide, please. So this is a comparison of a monthly charge in the York Region municipalities. For several years, we have been the highest, but you can see now that we are no longer the highest in terms of cost per month. The PAC is catching up to us, and I guess if we can go to the next slide. This is the reason why the PAC is catching up to us. So over the past, since 2016, the average municipality in York Region has increased the water rates and wastewater rates by about 35%, and we have increased ours by 12%. So basically 3 times the rate that we have increased ours by. Next slide, please. So just to show a bit of what we're doing in terms of providing additional services to our clients. We introduced e-billing in October of 2021, and right now we're approaching about 20% of our accounts being on e-billing. So, which is pretty good. It's we're also trying to increase that amount. It's not where we want it to be, but it is a good start, and we're going to try to do some promotion to get that increased. For online payments through our portal, we started that up in June of 2022, and you can see that we have in Q4 of 2022, we've got about 180 payments that we received through our online portal, and that's with fairly minimal promotion on that, which we want to do as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Molinari's team to go through the operating and capital budgets.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will take us through the 2023 operating budget details. So first of all, we have salaries and benefits, which have increased 7% related to step increases. $10,000 is allocated for a follow-up audit with York Region. $37,000 is for the cost of living increases. Next, under contracted services, the majority of the $58,000 is allocated for a new contracted service for locates or Ontario One call requests. This will help us free up a certified water operator from this administrative function. Next, we have courier and mail processing with a variance of $40,000, and this is related to going from quarterly to monthly water billing. Next, we have materials and supplies. These increases are allocated to a few items. First, to increase our hydrant part inventory to ensure the town has the required hydrant parts for life cycle and emergency repairs. This ensures hydrants remain in service at all times. A full hydrant assembly roughly costs $10,000. We also require additional water quality monitoring consumable items, as well as equipment and supplies to support the town's flushing program. Next, there's a $6,250 increase in utilities, and that's related to the addition of the sanitary pumping station in Mount Albert, which we currently operate. Next is the indirect corporate costs, and I think finance can discuss any increases on the $30,000 there if there's questions. And then we have York Region's water and wastewater costs, which are flow-through costs set by York Region. Overall, there's a 0% net increase in the budget, while contributing an additional almost $500,000 to reserves, providing funding for support of our future initiatives. Happy to answer any questions on our budget.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Lahey, go ahead, please.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. With regard to indirect corporate costs, would you elaborate on what those costs include? I'll refer that to Mr. Marshall.
So through you, Madam Mayor, indirect corporate costs are charges related to work that is done by other areas of the corporation that pertain to the water and wastewater. So things like legal services, some of the work that finance does on water and wastewater, some IT support, those indirect costs that are used to support the water and wastewater are allocated towards this account. So,
Mr. Webster.
Madam Mayor, as part of this budget session, I just want to once again walk into the regional supply issue. And when you look at this graphic here, $3.5 million for water charges, $3.6 million for wastewater, so almost comparable. That's 65% of our expenditure budget. And I guess I'm at the point of where Councillor Roy DeClemente is. She's in her fourth term, and I've been here even. And we've had this water quality issue for many terms of council. and it's wasteful. I'm going to use that word again. And it's, we seem to spend money on projects, and we're a very small user of their water consumption, but we end up paying for this exclusively. And I'm wondering if there's a different tact. Certainly we want to solve it, but at the same time, our percentage of consumption compared to the other 8 municipalities is greatly lower. And I'm almost wondering, thinking out loud, why this isn't a regional cost. It's put to all users of York Region. It's a driver of our costs. I look at our water rate, and over the years, we've had this as an ongoing matter. And as Mr. Molinari's issued, let's say it's in the magnitude of $500,000 again, which is a massive proportion of our budget. And I just think that we should, subject to some council direction, take a look at some other options for maybe more equitably spreading these costs across the regional distribution system, rather than East Gwillimbury being solely responsible for them. And we've never had a council resolution to that effect, I'll be honest with you, but it might be a different approach to take, you know, their regional development charge has always been premised on if you build a block north of Steeles Avenue, or if you build in Pefferlaw and you get the same regional services, you pay the same regional rate. And that's been a premise that goes back to the Eldred King era about uniform user rates and development charges. And I just think it's something that we may want to discuss maybe at the chair level and the CAO level. I did brief Mr. McGregor before this. This was going to become another issue again. He grimaced on the phone. I could hear him, as he too wasn't aware that we were into another round of flushing and operational issues. So it's something we all want to solve, but maybe there's some different tactics that can be deployed.
Thank you. I agree. I think it's time to sit down with people at a table and work through this. I would say we're not very proud of the wasted water that we have in East Gwillimbury. We should be walking the walk and talking the talk, and we're not dealing with water. It doesn't matter whether it's going in someone's home or whether it's being flushed. We're paying for it, and it's just fundamentally wrong in this day and age with water that instead of showing that we are able to conserve it, we're going in the other direction. I'd be very very interested in having those discussions with the region. I have no problem whatsoever. Councillor Crothers, go ahead.
I'm happy to support any sort of resolution that will help staff deal with this, and I'm not sure if there's something that you have ready for today or if it needs to come back, maybe with a quick staff report outlining exactly what our intentions are, but I think that's something that has to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to second the comment by Councillor Carruthers. She took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say anything that we can do as a council to support you and the administration in resolving this issue. We need to do it because it's dragged on for far too long. So happy to assist in any way you see fit.
Thank you. We need to do it because it's the right thing to do. You boil it down, that's exactly what it is. Any other comments, questions?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I put a note into the chat just based on the conversation that we're having with a resolution. And I know we're in Budget Committee, so I'm not sure what staff be directed to prepare a report with proposed resolution to urgently address the issue of water flushing in East Gwillimbury. When I say proposed resolution, that is a resolution that has some whereases that our staff and you, Madam Mayor, can use to advocate on behalf of our municipality with the region and the water system.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other comments at this time.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if it is the wish of council to the committee to address this motion on its own, we can certainly bring that up for discussion. It would be the Budget Committee requesting staff to prepare such a report. And I can have that as a standalone resolution for adoption first, and then we can move forward with the remainder and the balance of the update.
Thank you. I'm seeing nods.
So, Madam Mayor, what I would recommend is that it be amended to say that staff be directed to prepare a report with a proposed resolution for council's consideration in order to urgently address the issue.
Through Madam Mayor, I'm just recrafting that. Just bear with me for a moment.
Yeah. Sorry, I was rethinking it as I was reading it.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the motion has been reworded to say that it be resolved that the Budget Committee requests staff to prepare a report with a proposed resolution for council's consideration to urgently address the issue of water flushing in East Gwillimbury.
Does that cover what other people were thinking and articulating? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, you just need a mover for that effect. I suspect it's Councilor Ray Clemente.
Yes, I would say it would be. We don't need seconders in this area, but I'll keep that in mind later. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. Madam Clerk.
Madam Mayor, we're just bringing forward the balance of the presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions on what we have before us now? I'm not seeing any.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Maybe I'll take this opportunity to go through the capital budget requests for this year as well as the outstanding capital budget from the previous tenure. So the first one I'd like to talk about that we've had a bit of discussion today on is WW.23001, which is focused on water quality improvements. Through 2022, as noted, water flushing in Sharon and Queensville communities resulted in flushing of approximately $400,000 of water in order to meet regulatory water quality requirements. Building on our joint Bales Water Age study with Region York that we undertook in 2021, this project will further this research and investigate options to minimize flushing and continue to maintain water quality with our partners in Newmarket and York Region. Staff propose that this project is worth both the energy and effort to address this outstanding issue. The second in capital budget is 23-002, which is our sanitary ECA requirements. Recently introduced new provincially downloaded responsibilities for a townwide sanitary environmental compliance approval will require a subject matter expert to assist staff with the initial framework to manage these ECA requirements. This project would include application process mapping, fee structure development, and provide a holistic understanding of the associated operational responsibilities and long-term planning required for this downloaded responsibility. And last but not least is 23003, which is a trailer replacement. This trailer actually highlights the active ongoing fleet lifecycle assessment performed on assets before they come due for replacement. This trailer is well beyond its 15-year life cycle and has been extended mainly because it's in reasonable condition and has met its intended use. Unfortunately, due to its current condition and 35-year age, it's time to replace this unit. So it's proposed for immediate replacement.
We got our money's worth out of that one.
We did. So that's the end of the proposed new capital items. Any questions?
Councillor Johns, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I would say after what we just went through on the discussion around the 400,000 and the fact of the flushing to ensure that we are meeting regulatory standards, I think the first item on that list of the 85,000, just as we are going forward in looking to recoup cost, I just don't want to forget that one capital investment that we are making, because that's because of the water quality issue in itself. So
asking that you recognize the 85 on top of the 400 as well as you go forward in your discussion. So thank you.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing any.
Okay, next slide, please. So this is the 10-year forecast or capital forecast that with current projects, and I'm happy to report that 9 are complete or awaiting delivery. The remaining 3 are well underway. Project 21002 is 80% complete. The Water Master Plan requires a PIC, then it will be brought back to the council for final approval anticipated in late summer or fall. Project 22001 is our automated meter reading program. A townwide propagation study is complete, and this desktop exercise will help provide guidance on the most suitable locations for these gateways or antennas in order to make sure they capture the most meters and are most effective in their locations. The first wireless gateway is on order, and approvals are underway for its installation on the regional elevated tank located in Mount Albert. Staff are very excited by the benefits that this project will have, and look forward to water billing customer service enhancements that will provide immediate access to individual real-time and historical meter data, as well as providing ongoing meter readings for the community. Following the installation of this first gateway, a subsequent budget request will be forthcoming to expand this project townwide. Project WW22-002 is the water main replacement for Sharon. This project is a design component for the replacement of asbestos water mains in the Sharon community, specifically around Morton Avenue. Although the town was successful in obtaining a grant in excess of $3 million, the grant does not cover the design component, only construction. So this capital project is for the design element. We will be coming back to council in 24 or 25 with a further budget request for construction, as the provincial funding that was obtained still requires us to fund about 25% of this project.
How long have they been there? Do you know? It's just curiosity, but the number of years that has been in Sharon.
Over 50 years.
Thank you.
And it is our last asbestos water main. So, finally is project 20-047, which is the Holland River Pumping Station. This project is complete, and I'm happy to report that staff were successful in obtaining compensation from the initial design firm for some errors and omissions within that the design at the time, which resulted in the noted project overage. These funds are not indicated on the project detail sheet, but it will bring the project back to being on budget. So on behalf of Mike, Christie, and I, thank you very much, and we look forward to any questions.
Questions? I'm not seeing any. Councillor Carruthers.
I have a comment from the very beginning when the priorities were put up. I know we're not into the new strategic plan yet because it hasn't been fully adopted, but when we get into the new strategic plan and environmental protection is standalone, I'm hoping that we can add in water conservation as part of that, because we had that great report from EAC a few years ago, and I don't want that to get lost. And I think under water and wastewater, water conservation is a big part of that, and it always helps with the water bills if we can help our residents to know how to conserve or help support them in their water conservation. Thank you.
I'm not seeing any other comments at this point. So this now concludes the discussion in our budget committee. No, not yet.
Through you, Madam Mayor, subject to any additional questions or comments, there is a draft resolution that I have prepared for council's consideration. Just bear with me for a moment.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just going to place it before council on the screen, and I will highlight it in blue so that it's clear as to the adoption in principle for this particular budget. Through Madam Mayor,
As you can see on the screen before you, this particular motion is focusing on the committee to receive the presentation that was presented, and the Budget Committee recommending to Council that the 2023 proposed water and wastewater operating budget be approved in principle, as well as the capital budget being approved in principle.
Any questions? Could I have a mover?
Yes,
Councillor
Madam Mayor, I
Johns?
had a question.
Councillor
Madam Mayor, I had a
Dick-Lemay
question
has a
about,
question.
regarding the water quality improvements, the 85,000. Is that being held in abeyance given our resolution regarding the water flushing issue, or are we continuing to move forward with that as well?
I have, go ahead, Mr. Webster. Also, go ahead.
I think when we report back, it would be enlightening to take a look at maybe the last 5 years of what we flushed and other capital costs as well. I know when we got into the Bales Drive retrofit, it was our position that it be funded by the region, but it all is into this regional water supply quality issue. So I think we'll do certainly this will be held in abeyance, as well as any outstanding operational money related to the flushing. I think it'll be a way of, and we don't want to be adversarial here. We're trying to work it out, but we're also trying to be fair and equitable. And so I would ask Mike's team to communicate that to his staff associates at York Region.
Mr. Molinari, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we will be keeping a tally of all of our costs, and the expectation is that the region will also be putting funds together into this project as a joint venture, along with Newmarket. So one of the principles that we're trying to achieve is that what would we do if this system was all under one entity's ownership, and what's the best thing to do overall? And that's really, as a high-level principle, what we're trying to achieve through this project.
Thank you. You mentioned Newmarket. Is Aurora included with that as well?
Through Madam Mayor, at this point, no, because the water issue seems to be floating between Newmarket and the town. There could be something that we would look at in the project that would look at water coming from Lake Ontario along its whole path in order to be in the best possible shape and quality by the time it reaches East Gwillimbury. So there may be some linkages to some of the downstream municipalities, but until we get into it a little bit further, we won't know the extent of what that is.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? We have,
Yes, Madam Mayor, I just, as Mr. Webster said, keeping track of what we've already spent. I know we spent 75,000 trying to address this issue in Bales. And then years ago, we paid a portion of a seconded person, actually, whose sole job was to address the Green Lane issue. So, having an understanding of how much we've already put into this issue would be helpful as well. So I appreciate Mr. Webster's comments. Thank you.
bit of a history lesson. I'm not seeing any other questions at this time.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can put the resolution back before council's
Thank you.
deliberation. You'll just require a mover and a vote of council for this portion.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Councillor Johns. Be it resolved that the 2023 proposed water and wastewater budget presentation dated February 7th, 2023 be received, and that Budget Committee recommend to Council that the 2023 proposed water and wastewater operating budget be approved in principle, and that the Budget Committee recommends to Council that the 2023 proposed water and wastewater capital budget be approved in principle. All in favor? And that's carried. This now concludes The discussion on our Budget Committee portion for today's meeting. We will now adjourn the Budget Committee portion of today's session to resume with the balance of the council meeting. Could I have a mover to adjourn the Budget Committee session? Councillor Crone. All those in favor? And that's carried. Be it resolved that the meeting of the Budget Committee adjourn at 12:35 p.m. Moved by Councillor Crone. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We'll now resume with the remainder of today's council meeting at this time. And I'm looking at the clock. I don't. Could I have a mover and seconder to resume the balance of our council meeting? Councillor Foster. All those in favor? That's carried. And I need a seconder, Councillor Crothers. Thank you. We are now, I'm sure everybody wants to get up and stretch and et cetera. Do we want to resume at this time, or do we actually want to take a...
Madam
Mr.
Mayor?
Webster, go ahead, please.
We have two items left on today's agenda. We have a closed meeting session, which I think should be relatively short. It's not the full report, which will be in public session next week. It is, however, an update on the Joint Fire Services assessment from an employee negotiation perspective. That I think will be a relatively shorter session. We do have Maureen McCauley, who's been waiting for this session as well online, so mindful of her time as well. Maybe I would suggest like a 9-minute recess, and that we reconvene at 12:45 to deal with this in-camera session, and then we have, under other business, we have the report from the MPP Mulroney meeting, as well as rescoping our agenda for the 14th, just so council's fully aware. So I think if we did take a short recess, we should be able to deal with those other matters and complete this session.
I'm fine with that. To be back at 12:45, could I have a mover? Councillor Johns, Councillor LaHaye, go ahead. Thank you. All in favor? And with that, we will take a break.
prior to going live. I just wanted to let everybody know.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to check with our production desk to see if we're prepared to go live.
We are now at item Q on our agenda for today. It is a closed meeting, and to proceed into a closed meeting of Municipal Council, be it resolved that council proceed into a closed meeting of Municipal Council at 12:49 p.m. to deal with the following matters: labor relations or employee negotiations, Municipal Act Section 2392D, East Gwillimbury / Georgina Joint Fire Services Assessment. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor LaHaye, Councillor Johns, all those in favor? And that's carried. We are now in closed session.
Just bear with us for a moment as we transition.
We're now live.
Thank you. To rise and report from closed meeting of municipal council, be it resolved that council rise and report from a closed meeting of municipal council at 1:30 p.m. and that council endorse all directions provided to staff at the closed meeting of the municipal council held on February 7th. That would be moved by Councillor Roy DeClemente and seconded by Councillor Johns. All those in favor? And that's carried. We have no correspondence at this time. I have a brief update to share on my meeting this past Friday with Minister Mulrooney, and CAO Webster and Deputy CAO Velchik also attended. This past Friday, I met with Minister Mulrooney. CAO Webster and Deputy CAO Velchik were included as well. Our agenda included a community update specific to Woodbine 1 project and the Health and Active Living Plaza. Minister Mulrooney was thanked for the provincial decision and funding of the York Region Sewage Works project, as well as for the modernization and funding provided. We discussed the decommissioning of the Holland Landing lagoons, and we discussed Bill 23, the More Homes Built Faster legislation, and we shared our concerns as they related to this legislation. This was a very positive meeting and was an opportunity to share information on both sides. Province continues to be engaged and is a strong partner with the town. We must all be mindful and respectful when speaking in the community about provincial initiatives. And CAO Webster, I just wondered if you had any comments that you wanted to bring in before we closed.
Certainly, Madam Mayor, yes, it was a good, productive meeting. I will add that MPP Mulroney did have senior staff from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing office there as well, and I thought that was important. And they noted that they are looking at provincial funding programs for some of the shortfalls and federal as well, that both of the levels of government are looking very much at creating affordable housing and assisting municipalities in getting to those targets. And subsequent to that meeting, Madam Mayor, we discussed with Deputy Velchich the need to invite York Region staff, Aaron Mahoney, Mike Rabot, who have been with us over many years, talking about the Upper York delays, to discussing some move forward strategies with regards to lagoon decommissioning and further sewage allocation for our community. So we're going to ensure that they are invited to a growth management session in the coming future for council.
Thank you. At this time, I'll move along to item T, the confirming bylaw.
Did have
Sorry.
an advisement through the clerk that in the interest of agenda management and prioritizing the different things, did you want to, Clerk Legerverde, go over the revisions to next week's agenda and some of the items that we're going to look at reprofiling to future council initiatives?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. I believe last we spoke, there were a number of proposed items suggested for the February 14th agenda. A couple of those items require further reviews and meetings, namely, for instance, the advisory committee reviews. We have started and initiated interviews with all members of council. However, 4 are still outstanding, with the last meeting being scheduled on February 14th. So that item is being proposed to be postponed until later in February. Another item that was on the list was the asset management presentation, which I believe, again, given the complexities of that particular presentation, it's being proposed to be moved at a future date. The focus for next week is going to be the strategic plan discussions, as well as the update in relation to the E.G. Georgina fire assessment report. So we're just amending those so that it's a bit of a scoped day to carry those out. And again, once we have completed the facilitation of our advisory, we will be in a better shape to bring back some updates for council's consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Webster, go ahead, please.
I just add, asset management, we do have some staff that will not be able to attend that are pretty key staff for that meeting. And we are ready and working on a presentation on the asset management program and commit that it will be brought to the workshop that we added at the end of March.
Any questions? Councillor, hey, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Mayor. As a follow-up to your meeting with the Honourable MPP Caroline Mulroney, which I'm pleased to hear that it was a very positive and productive meeting, do you have any more details on the future provincial funding programs that you referred to with reference to affordable housing, or when they will be coming? And I think it's important to, as you said, when speaking about things in the community related to Bill 23, that we do so in a way that doesn't cause any unnecessary anxiety for residents, because there's been a lot of anxiety expressed to me, and as I know other councillors, with regard to possible, the impact of Bill 23, and I think it's important to continue to ask questions and work with our partners as we move forward.
I agree with your secondary comment, and with regards, there was no specifics other that they indicated that they were talking with the federal government about programs specific for affordable housing at the municipal level. Today, the premiers are meeting with the Prime Minister on healthcare, so I think it's going to be dealt with in due course as far as a funding priority. So we're hopeful that there's going to be some programs that will be of assistance to us.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I think there will be opportunities, and I think we need to keep in mind, and staff keep in mind, that there are opportunities in our communities, and specifically Mount Albert, with regard to affordable housing and seniors are very much in need of affordable housing. So I think we should explore with developers who specialize in seniors housing for potential improvements in that regard, specifically for Mount Albert, but also East Gwillimbury as a whole in terms of affordable housing.
Thank you. Not seeing any other comments. I have a confirming bylaw at this time. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-005, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council meeting held on February 7th, 2023, be taken as read, enacted, and signed by the mayor and municipal clerk. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Crone, Councillor Foster, all those in favor? That's carried, and we have an adjournment at 1:38, moved by Councillor Johns, seconded by Councillor LaHaye. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much.